Hi, I'm Rashonda Kay. This is Reading with Rashonda, and we are reading Running a Thousand Miles to Freedom by William and Ellen Craft. No chapters. We're in part 1 of the book, and this is video 3. So part 1, video 3, let's get rolling. According to the law of Louisiana, a slave is one who is in the power of a master to whom he belongs. The master may sell him, dispose of his person, his industry, and his labor. He can do nothing, possess nothing, nor acquire anything but what must belong to his master. Civil Code, Article 35. I'm sorry, that was written down somewhere? Let's read that again. According to the law of Louisiana, a slave is one who is in the power of a master to whom he belongs. The master may sell him, dispose of his person, his industry, and his labor. He can do nothing, possess nothing, nor acquire anything but what must belong to his master. Wow. The only thing a slave owns is, their mind, their spirit. And I was reading Dawn by Octavia Butler the other day, and somebody was having his mental freedom taken from him, and I thought, my gosh, that never even occurred to me that mental freedom is something that could be taken. But at least here in the Civil Code, Article 35 of the state of Louisiana, a slave still had their mind. But if you've ever read Naim Akbar's Chains and Images of Psychological Slavery, you'll know that slavery impacts your mind, and not just yours, but for generations to come. It took me like one paragraph to get off topic. I'm back. Let's keep reading. In South Carolina, it is expressed in the following language: slaves shall be deemed, sold, taken, reputed, and judged in law to be chattels, personal in the hands of their owners and possessors, and their executors, administrators, and assigns to all intents, constructions, and purposes whatsoever. 2 Brevard's Digest 229. Okay, so that actually increased the scope of what slavery was. So the law from Louisiana said the slave is entirely the master's. All his industry, all his labor, everything belongs to the master. This South Carolina law adds that they're to be chattels personal in the hands of their owners and possessors, their executors, administrators, and assigns. So the slave isn't just owned by the person who owns the slave, but anybody who works on behalf of the master is also to whom the slave must report. So, okay, we have Louisiana and South Carolina. Next is Georgia. The Constitution of Georgia has the following. Article 4, Section 12. Any person who shall maliciously dismember or deprive a slave of life shall suffer such punishment as would be inflicted in the case... Any person who shall maliciously dismember or deprive a slave of life shall suffer such punishment as would be inflicted in case the like offense had been committed on a free white person and on the like proof, except in the case of insurrection of such slave, and unless such death should happen by accident in giving such slave moderate correction. Prince's Digest 559. It starts off like it's, okay. I don't know why they're talking about dismembering. All right, Georgia, what are you doing? But anybody who dismembers or deprives a slave of life shall suffer such punishment as would be inflicted in case the like offense had been committed on a free white person. Okay, I'm down with that. You can't kill a slave or else you'll be punished like you killed a white person. And then there's the word except. Except in case of insurrection of such slave. I can only imagine the state of Georgia at this time defined slave insurrection very, very broadly. And then they ended up by saying such death should, all of this, blah, 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 unless such death should happen by accident, and giving such slave moderate correction. A couple of things. If you are moderately correcting someone, they should not die by accident. Right? Is that not what the definition of moderate correction would be? So basically, this is saying, if you dismember or kill a slave, you'll be punished as if you had killed, dismembered, or I'm stuck on dismemberment, dismembered or killed a free white person, except if the slave is insurrecting, which I have no doubt they defined as a slave not doing or saying or being or whatever the master wanted. So if that slave is insurrecting, then you can really do whatever you want to do, because it's only moderate correction. Moderate correction. And so if the slave dies by accident while you are giving moderate correction, you're fine. No big deal. Back to the text. I have known slaves to be beaten to death, but as they died under moderate correction, it was quite lawful, and of course the murderers were not interfered with. If any slave who shall be out of the house or plantation where such slave shall live, or shall be usually employed, or without some white person in company with such slave, shall refuse to submit to undergo the examination of any white person, let him be ever so drunk or crazy, it shall be lawful for such white person to pursue, apprehend, and moderately correct such slave, and if such slave shall assault and strike such white person, such slave may be lawfully killed. 2 Brevard's Digest 231. I'm getting choked up with this because I'm thinking of Ahmaud Arbery, who was a black man who was out jogging, and 2 white men saw him and thought, surely this is the man who has been burglarizing homes in the neighborhood, armed themselves, got in a truck, chased him down, and murdered him. So I'm thinking about that when I read, and I'm going to change slave to black man. If any black man shall be out of the house where such black man shall live, or shall be usually employed, or without some white person in company with such black man, shall refuse to submit to undergo the examination of any white person, let him be ever so drunk or crazy, it shall be lawful for such white person to pursue, apprehend, and moderately correct such slave. And if, such black person, did I say person? Such black man. And if such black man shall assault and strike such white person, such black man may be lawfully killed. So what I understand to have happened is, I can only imagine Arbery refused to submit to undergo the examination of these white men who were like, stop, we want to talk to you. Citizen's arrest. And it shall be lawful for such white person to pursue, which is what happened. They pursued, they apprehended, and moderately corrected. They killed him. And I guess that's moderate correction. And if such black man shall assault and strike such white person, such black man may be lawfully killed. I did not watch the video. I have no stomach for such things. My understanding is that Arbery tried to disarm one of the men, and that is right in line here. And if such black man shall assault and strike such white person, such black man may be lawfully killed. And it seems as if this black man was lawfully killed. So that's why I'm all choked up right now. I don't know what year this law is from. I would guess sometime between 1850 and 1860. The Crafts escaped in 1848, and they wrote this book in 1860. So this law was probably the law in the books between that time and here in 2020. At least today for me, it does not feel all that different. All right, I'm going to keep reading. Provided always, says the law, that such striking be not done by the command and in the defense of the person or property of the owner, or other person having the government of such slave, in which case the slave shall be wholly excused. According to this law, if a slave, by the direction of his overseer, strike a white person who is beating said overseer's pig, the slave shall be wholly excused. But should the bondman of his own accord fight to defend his wife, or should his terrified daughter instinctively raise her hand and strike the wretch who attempts to violate her chastity, he or she shall, saith the model Republican law, suffer death. From having been myself a slave for nearly 23 years, I am quite prepared to say that the practical working of slavery is worse than the odious laws by which it is governed. Let's read that again. The practical working of slavery is worse than the odious laws by which it is governed. At an early age, we were taken by the persons who held us as property to Macon, the largest town in the interior of the state of Georgia, at which place we became acquainted with each other for several years before our marriage. In fact, our marriage was postponed for some time simply because one of the unjust and worse than pagan laws under which we lived compelled all children of slave mothers to follow their condition. That is to say, the father of the slave may be the president of the republic, just as was the case in Clotel by William Wells Brown. So that is to say, the father of the slave may be the president of the republic, but if the mother should be a slave at the infant's birth, the poor child is ever legally doomed to the same cruel fate. It is a common practice for gentlemen, if I may call them such, moving in the highest circles of society, to be the fathers of children by their slaves, whom they can and do sell with the greatest impunity. And the more pious, beautiful, and virtuous the girls are, the greater the price they bring, and that too for the most infamous purposes. Any man with money, let him be ever such a rough brute, can buy a beautiful and virtuous girl and force her to live with him in a criminal connection, and as the law says the slave shall have no higher appeal than the mere will of the master, she cannot escape unless it be by flight or death. In endeavoring to reconcile a girl to her fate, the master sometimes says that he would marry her if it was not unlawful. Pah! Lies. All lies right there. Oh, there's an asterisk which leads me to believe there's a note somewhere. Let me find the note. Okay, I found the note. So let's read that sentence again. In endeavoring to reconcile a girl to her fate, the master sometimes says that he would marry her if it was not unlawful. And then it leads us to a note. The note says, it is unlawful in the slave states for anyone of purely European descent to intermarry with a person of African extraction, though a white man may live with as many colored women as he pleases without materially damaging his reputation in Southern society. All right, back to the text. However, he will always consider her to be his wife and will treat her as such, and she, on the other hand, may regard him as her lawful husband, and if they have children, they will be free and well educated. Lies. All lies. We know those are lies. Did it happen? Probably. Was it the norm? No. I am in duty bound to add that while a great majority of such men care nothing for the happiness of the women with whom they live, nor for the children of whom they are the fathers, there are those to be found, even in that heterogeneous mass of licentious monsters. Even in that heterogeneous mass of licentious monsters. Doesn't that sound like something that would be in The Princess Bride? Maybe they got it from this. All right. Even in that heterogeneous mass of licentious monsters who are true to their pledges. But, as the woman and her children are legally the property of the man, who stands in the anomalous relation to them of husband and father, as well as master, they are liable to be seized and sold for his debts should he become involved. There are several cases on record where such persons have been sold and separated for life. I know of some myself, but I have only space to glance at one. And we'll stop there because he's about to go on to another story. I'm going to mark my spot here. I lost my spot. All right, I'm going to mark my spot here on my Kindle app on my phone. And that is our reading for today. I am Rashonda Cade, and this is Reading with Rashonda.